I want to begin by saying this clearly. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to cry. You are allowed to doubt and wonder if you're strong enough. But what you are not allowed to do, not if you're trying to live fully, is quit on yourself. See, quitting is easy. Settling, that's comfortable. Complaining, it gives us a false sense of control. But none of those paths lead to growth. None of them lead to meaning, and none of them honor the fight you've already survived to get here. There was a moment in my life, messy, vulnerable, no filter, where everything in me wanted to walk away from a dream. It felt too hard, too risky. And honestly, I didn't think I had what it took. But then I heard this voice, not loud, not flashy, just firm, and it said, "You can rest, but you can't quit." That became my anchor. We don't talk enough about how complaining can become a form of self-protection. It keeps us from looking inward. It keeps us from making the hard call. But if we're honest, complaining is easier than vulnerability. It's easier than saying, "I'm scared I'll fail," or "I don't want to do this alone." But courage, real courage, starts when we get honest. It starts when we turn our complaints into choice. And let's talk about settling. That one is tricky because sometimes settling is dressed up like wisdom. It tells us, be realistic, don't dream too big, stay safe. But here's the truth. Settling is a slow surrender of your spirit. It's saying, this version of me is all I'll ever be. When deep down, you know there's more. More strength, more fire, more voice. Strength isn't found in pretending to be invincible. It's found in getting up one more time than you fall. It's in the shaky voice that still speaks. It's in the trembling hands that still reach out. That's what it means to be unshakable, not because we never struggle, but because we choose to keep showing up in the middle of the storm. We live in a culture that confuses grit with grind, where being exhausted is worn like a badge of honor, and pushing through burnout is celebrated like resilience. But here's the truth we don't say out loud enough. Resting is not quitting. Pausing is not failure. Taking a breath does not mean you're weak. There's a kind of quiet bravery in choosing rest over collapse, in saying, I need a moment, instead of forcing yourself through a wall you were never meant to crash into. Rest requires self-awareness. It requires boundaries. It's not giving up. It's giving yourself a chance to come back with clarity, intention, and strength. But quitting is something else. Quitting is letting go of the vision because the path got hard. It's walking away from the thing that still matters to you simply because it asked too much of you in the moment. And let's be real, that urge is human. We've all stood at that edge. We've all whispered, I can't do this anymore. So here's the shift we need to make. When we feel that weight, when we feel like we're at the end of ourselves, the answer isn't to power through in silence or to throw the dream away. The answer is to pause, to step back, to breathe, to check in with the version of yourself that got you this far and ask, people I know have taken breaks. Some of the most committed people I admire have hit pause, not because they didn't care, but because they cared too much to show up halfway. Rest is sacred. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, remember this: you are not failing when you rest. You are not less worthy when you need time. You are not quitting just because you're catching your breath. You are doing the hard, brave human thing, choosing rest over resignation. Because your mission, your dream, your becoming, it matters too much to abandon. And you are worth showing up for. Let's tell the truth here. Complaining feels good sometimes. It gives us a hit of validation when the world feels unfair. It gathers sympathy. It creates quick connection. And if we're honest, it gives us a sense of control. Like, at least I can name what's wrong, even if I can't fix it. But here's the part we don't talk about. Complaining often becomes a mask we wear when we're too afraid to be vulnerable. Instead of saying, I'm scared, we say, this is ridiculous. Instead of asking for help, we vent. Instead of setting a boundary, we spiral out loud. We complain because it's safer than owning what's really going on under the surface. Safer than saying, I feel powerless, or I feel like I'm not enough. And it's not that our complaints are always invalid. Sometimes they are deeply justified. Sometimes we're navigating injustice, overwhelm, or heartbreak. But when we linger too long in the language of blame or sarcasm or cynicism, something subtle happens. We lose connection with our power. We step out of agency and into victimhood. We confuse talking about the fire with putting it out. Courage doesn't live in that space. Courage lives in the moment we shift from reaction to response. When we move from naming the problem to asking, what now? What can I do with what I've been given? And that shift is terrifying because it means taking responsibility for our stories. It means being seen. It means risking failure, rejection, change. But it also means choosing to show up differently. And that's where real freedom is. I remember a time in my life when I was stuck in a cycle of quiet complaints. I told myself I was just processing. I said I was venting, but really I was afraid to act. I was afraid to speak the truth out loud, that I wasn't okay, that I needed help, that I was hiding from the life I actually wanted. Complaining had become a habit that kept me safe from discomfort, but also kept me small. And I'll tell you this, nothing changes when we stay in the language of powerlessness. Real courage starts the moment we say, I don't like how this feels, and I'm ready to take one small step. It starts when we move from grumbling to grieving, from blaming to building, from staying stuck to leaning in. Does that mean we never vent? Of course not. We're human. But there's a difference between processing pain and pitching a tent in it. There's a difference between sharing what's hard and getting so comfortable in the story that we stop writing new chapters. So here's the invitation. Catch yourself when you're stuck in complaint. Pause, get curious, ask what's the real emotion underneath this. Then ask what would courage look like right now? Because courage doesn't always roar, sometimes it whispers. Enough talking, let's do the brave thing. Settling doesn't always feel like giving up. Sometimes it feels like being practical. Sometimes it feels like keeping the peace. Sometimes it even sounds noble. I should just be grateful for what I have. But here's the thing about settling. It rarely screams. It whispers. It's not a loud no. It's a soft, daily shrinking of what you believe you're allowed to hope for. We settle in relationships where we feel unseen, but convince ourselves that love should hurt a little. We settle in careers that drain us because at least they're stable. We settle in how we speak, how we dress, how we dream, because standing out feels risky and shrinking feels safe. And over time, settling becomes a rhythm, a quiet hum of compromise that feels almost like contentment until we wake up one day and barely recognize ourselves. Here's the part that stings a little. We often settle because we've made peace with fear, not because we're incapable, not because we're lazy, but because somewhere along the way, we started to believe the lie that what we truly want is too much, too bold, too risky, too late. We don't want to disappoint others. We don't want to be alone. We don't want to fail. And so we accept the almost right thing, the almost good enough love, the halfway life. But there's a cost. There's a part of us, deep and knowing, that keeps whispering, this isn't it. And no matter how much we try to quiet that voice with distractions, busyness, or logic, it doesn't go away. Because your potential doesn't forget who you are, even when you do. Settling is a quiet betrayal because it asks us to betray ourselves, gently, gradually, and with a smile. It's not dramatic. It doesn't always look like pain, but it shows up as numbness, as resentment, as an aching disconnection from the person we promise we'd become. And here's the most heartbreaking part. The world never gets to meet the truest version of us when we settle. Our children, our partners, our communities, they miss out on our brilliance, our voice, our fire, and we miss out on the joy that only comes from living aligned with what we really value. But here's the good news. You can stop settling the moment you choose to start listening. Not to the loud voices of fear or shame or should, but to the quiet wisdom that says, you were made for more. And it's not too late. This isn't about perfection. This isn't about chasing some shiny idea of success. This is about coming home to yourself. It's about reclaiming your worth, your time, your boundaries, your wild dreams. And you don't have to overhaul your life overnight. You don't need to burn it all down. You just need to start by saying, I want something more, and I'm brave enough to go look for it. So no, don't settle. Not for a version of love that makes you feel small. Not for a life that doesn't light something up in your chest. Not for safety if it costs you your spirit. You are not here to shrink. You are not here to survive on scraps. You are here to build a life that fits the full measure of who you are. And you deserve to take up that space. Let me know if you want the final two expanded as well. Real strength is vulnerable. Your story isn't over. Keep your chin up. Don't let them see you cry. Push through. Toughen up. We hear these messages so often that we start believing strength means hiding what hurts, powering through pain in silence, or pretending We've got it all together, even when we're crumbling inside. But here's the truth that doesn't always make it onto the highlight reels. Real strength isn't how well you hide your pain. Real strength is how honestly you live with it. Real strength is vulnerable, it's raw, it's exposed, it's the quietest, bravest thing you'll ever do. Show up as your whole self, mess and magic and all. It's easy to build walls. It's easy to numb. It's easy to become so busy or so tough that nothing touches you. But that's not courage, that's protection. And sometimes that protection turns into a cage. Vulnerability is terrifying, yes, but it's also liberating, because when you let yourself be seen fully, you give yourself permission to be human. You allow others to meet the real you. And maybe most importantly, you stop wasting energy pretending to be someone you're not. Strength is crying in the car, then walking into the room and still telling the truth. It's saying, I need help, even when everything in you wants to do it alone. It's letting someone love you, really love you, without hiding the parts you're ashamed of. Strength is not the absence of fear. It's deciding to move forward with it, to speak with the lump in your throat, to reach out with shaky hands, to stand tall while your knees are still trembling. And here's something we forget. The people who've impacted us the most, the ones we admire, the ones who've healed us, weren't always the smartest or the strongest in the traditional sense. They were the most real, the most honest, the most present. We're drawn to people who are open, who admit they're scared, who say, me too, because those people give us permission to breathe. They remind us that we're not broken. We're just human. So what if we redefine strength? What if we stopped measuring it by how stoic someone is and started measuring it by how willing they are to stay open in the face of discomfort? What if we celebrated softness as a sign of power, not weakness? What if we stopped glorifying perfection and started honoring people for showing up imperfectly but wholeheartedly? It takes nothing to look strong, it takes everything to be strong. And that starts with being vulnerable. So if you're feeling broken, tender, overwhelmed, uncertain, hear me when I say you are not weak, you are not failing, you are not behind. You are being brave enough to feel, brave enough to stay, brave enough to not run away from yourself. And that is real strength. Let me know when you're ready for the final point. Your story isn't over. And I'll expand it in the same deep, powerful tone. There are moments in life, quiet, brutal moments, where you wonder if this is it, if the best parts are behind you, if the heartbreak broke too much, if the dream died and you're just left with what's left. Maybe it wasn't one big thing. Maybe it was 1,000 little cuts, disappointments that stacked up, opportunities that never came, people who didn't stay, versions of yourself that you thought you'd be by now but aren't. And somewhere in that slow unraveling, a dangerous story starts to form. Maybe I've missed my chance. But here's what I want you to hear in the deepest part of you. Your story isn't over, not even close. This chapter is just that, a chapter, not the whole book, not the ending, not the final word on who you are or what your life is meant to be. It might be a hard chapter, a confusing one, but the story isn't done being written. We don't get to control every plot twist. We don't get to choose who leaves, who stays, or what falls apart, but we do get to choose what we do with it, how we respond, what we build next, who we become, not in spite of the pain, but because of what it taught us. And that kind of authorship, that's where your power is. You are not just the character, you are the co-creator. You get to revise, reclaim. And no matter how broken the page feels right now, the pen is still in your hand. Do not underestimate the strength it takes to keep going, to wake up and face a day that feels like too much, to dream again after disappointment, to love again after loss, to believe again after betrayal. You are doing holy, unseen, soul-deep work just by staying in the story. Because sometimes the most powerful act of resistance is simply refusing to close the book on yourself. So let this be your reminder. You are not too late. You are not too far gone. You are not irreparably broken. You are in the middle of becoming again and again and again. Your next chapter might be the one that surprises you, the one where you reclaim your voice, where you remember your worth, where you rise softer and stronger. Let yourself imagine it. Let yourself want it. Let yourself believe, even with trembling hands, that the story can turn, because it can, and it will. Your story isn't over, you're still here, and that means anything is still possible. If there's one truth that threads through everything we've explored, through refusing to quit, choosing courage over complaint, rejecting the quiet betrayal of settling, embracing vulnerable strength, and trusting that your story isn't over, it's this: you are not here to live a half life. You are here to show up fully, imperfectly, bravely, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And showing up doesn't mean never falling down. It doesn't mean you never get tired or scared or unsure. It means you don't let those things define you. It means you choose to keep going even when your knees shake. It means you tell the truth even when your voice cracks. It means you take one more step even when you can't see the path yet. Because real courage isn't loud. It's not about having all the answers. It's about daring to stay open when it would be easier to shut down. This life, your life, is unfolding, and it's yours. You have the right to want more, to speak up, to rest, to heal, to grow into the person you were meant to be, not the one the world told you to be. So don't quit. Don't complain your way out of your power. Don't settle for a version of life that asks you to dim. Let yourself be vulnerable. Let yourself believe again. Your story isn't finished. The next chapter is waiting. And I promise it's worth turning the page. Keep going. The world needs what only you can give. You must never quit, never complain, never settle. Just keep showing up.